Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to see who is in. I see you're all trying to figure out what that thing is on the thumbnail. One of you has either knows or has figured it out. Okay, so who's here? J.O., Jen's Club GTV, Bill White, Shari D, Moon of the Illusion, QP. Not too many people this time. Christina Gerald, Intrepid, T-Box, Preliminal, Strawberry Time. Let's see. No, okay, anyway, I'm in. Okay, you guys should be hearing me. Is there any problems? Let me just check and see what the, according to this, straighten it a little bit. All right, you guys hearing me okay? Looks like it. All right, good. Okay, so what is that thing in the front? Somebody mentioned it. It is an eye. These are kind of an older ME. People, I think, when did I hear of these? It was before I knew of the ME, so maybe like 5 years ago. I mean, they looked weird from the start, and I looked into them because they looked weird. But they didn't have the funky finger that they have now. Let me see if I can find a better image of those. These things. All right, so now they have this weird finger, and there's like this whole story to it. All right, who mentioned this one? This one was from John Austin, was asking if this was an ME. It's an older one for me, but then when I looked at it, I started finding this whole thing. So this creature now has this finger that is like super long and skinny, so it looks like ET. Type in finger here. That was probably the best image of it. Here's another image of it. So one of the fingers is like super skinny, like a tiny stick. I mean, it literally looks like it would break off or something. And they stick it inside branches and stuff to dig for insects. Here's the finger. See, it looks like it's a stick. So there's a whole bunch of weird storyline to that whole finger thing now. Supposedly, if what was that? If it points its death finger at you, you have to kill it or you will die. That's supposed to be some legend in some jungle areas. Another thing is that they're saying it has a sixth finger. So October 2019. So what they just discovered, it has a sixth finger. That doesn't really make any sense because if they're looking at the skeleton, they shouldn't have waited all the way till 2019 to notice that it has a sixth tiny digit. All right, so there's the eye. See, it didn't used to have spider fingers. I looked into this thing, and there's no freaking way that this was its hands before. All right, so they're saying it has a sixth digit, like a pseudo thumb, which is manipulated by three muscles right here. I'm wondering if this will develop further. Right now, it's mostly a lump. But, I mean, if it's really a finger is there, then it should show in the skeleton. And they should have found this out from the get-go. It shouldn't be a big mystery. So the storyline now is because this one finger became so specialized, maybe it had to develop another finger. Now, it used to be all the animals had variations of the five fingers. I mean, some of them fused together, blah, blah. But the story we always heard was that you could always find the original five finger bones in there somewhere, even if they were fused weirdly or one was really long. But that's kind of breaking apart now. They're also saying some other creatures have the additional. Other species also have pseudo thumbs, including giant pandas, which use their six digits to grasp bamboo stalks. Pandas may have acquired that 6-digit after the rest of their fingers became less specialized so that the bears could better walk. That's not the case with eyes, though, the scientists think. All right, and eyes, I guess, are lemurs currently. They're considered a lemur. Anyways, I'm going to just take a quick look at this panda thing. I think I might have covered that panda extra digit before. I do feel like the pandas look like they can grasp better than my old timeline. I've covered before how I remember there being like a circle around the eye instead of like a teardrop pattern. This kind of a thing where the black is stretched out like that was not my original panda. They had more like a circle. Panda, I'm going to type up Panda 6 Digit. Just to see what they look like right now. All right, so apparently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this little bump here is the 6th digit. So you can see here they actually have like a whole bone sticking out as an additional thumb. So they have 6 digits. Let's see if there is an image of it. It's probably just a bump right now. Looks like it might be this thing right here, that lump. It's on the shortest part. Oh, no, it's not that. That's like the callus part. So it's in here somewhere. Anyway, so yeah, I've covered before that there are a lot of creatures have 6 fingers now. Was in my old timeline, it was very rare, and they were just kind of vestigial. If you saw the 6 finger, it wouldn't be very functional. It'd be all puny, and half the time it was mostly just flesh. It usually wouldn't work. Now when people have an extra finger, it's like a whole useful finger. The mutations, even if they have weird mutations, a lot of times the mutations all look totally functional in current timeline. That's different from my old timeline. Fan of Star Trek. Speaking of Star Trek, I was going to come up to this one, but I'm just going to... It's not really a Mandela, but I thought it was really weird. There, that's it. I think Brian Stavely covered this, but I already had it on my list before I saw it on his, so I'm just going to go ahead and mention it. Looks like I'm okay. For a minute there, it said not receiving data. All right, so I guess Trump unveiled his new Space Force logo. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about it. It looks strangely familiar. Doink. Ugh, too small. Here, about this one. There. All right, so here's the new logo, and here's Star Trek Starfleet Command logo. You know, it's kind of got a NASA feel to it with this spiraling thing. My original NASA logo did not have the spiraling planet, but that was a long time ago. My original NASA logo didn't even have all the stars and stuff in it. So anyway, this is the current Starfleet Command Star Trek one, and this is the supposed United States Space Force logo. The only reason I'm bringing this up, I mean, it would be easy to just say that, oh, these people were probably Star Trek fans that had no imagination or whatever. But we've just seen a lot that first stuff starts in movies and legend and myth, and then it becomes reality. And so that's why I'm kind of bringing this up now, because I don't know, are we going to have like a Star Trek reality? Is that what this kind of means? Are we like in the early parts of Star Trek now? I mean, I really wouldn't put it past what's going on. I don't know. It just... the way reality now is so weird, and so I'm just kind of looking for patterns about where we might be heading, and I just wonder if this is one of them, that this is like a sign. It's just not random. It's not just that people like Star Trek. I mean, why make it so blatant? I don't know. Anyway, so that's why I thought I'd mention that one. Let's see what you guys are up to over here. Bat porcupine hybrid. Yeah, it's weird looking. Oh, Life Matrix is in. Welcome. Ronan the Voice. Futuristic. Pandas are polydactyls. Yeah, I guess so. Basically, they say they all have a sixth mini finger. I think I've covered that one before, though, but I didn't cover this eye finger. Yeah, it does. It, somebody mentioned that it reminded them of what was that movie? E.T. Phone Home, and it reminded me of that immediately. Also, that image. So that's interesting. Mocking people is trendy, so it goes with the timeline. Where are the Klingons? I don't know. We're getting enough weird-looking humans now that we've got elves. We already have dwarfs, but now they're like shaped. They're now proportional. My old dwarfs were not proportional. My old dwarfs did not look like mini humans, like just shrunk down proportional. They do now. We've got the elves. I think we're working on the giants. We've already got really tall people, basketball basically. So yeah, who knows? People have Vulcan ears. Yeah, I've mentioned that before. Even my own ears are way more pointy than they used to be. Klingons equal reptilian. Nah, I don't think so. That's not, I don't know. I mean, who knows what, but they don't remind me of reptilian. I think, I mean, if anything, they might be more like something I'm going to cover later. All right, where are we? Okay, I did the, did I cover that one? Oh my God, I'm like total airhead today. All right, so this one's a weird one because they're basically saying that Mount Vesuvius was so hot that it turned someone's brain into glass. The eruption was in AD 79. I've never heard of anything any organic thing being vitrified in this manner. They can say fossils become they would say that it was buried and that there was a mineral rich area and slowly minerals replaced the organic matter. But now they're basically saying you can turn to glass if you get fried fast enough. Vitrification is the process through which a material is heated to an extreme high temperature until it liquefies and then cooled rapidly, leading to the formation of glass-like material. I mean, I've heard of it for volcanoes making obsidian as a stone, but now they're saying that these fragments here are basically glass brain parts. Was lying face down in the volcanic ash. The intense heat from the eruption had burst open the skull, exposing the shining black glassy material within. Charred wood found near the body confirms that extreme heating and rapid cooling took place. All right, so I bet your brain can turn to glass now. I call baloney. All right, so there's that one. I did want to bring up that a new Mandela Effect conference is got a preliminary schedule of June 5th through 7th. This is run by Dark Wolf's Den and crew. I don't know if they'll be able to keep that because they haven't gotten their venue straightened out yet. They want to do it on the East Coast somewhere. They're working on it. But anyways, it's in progress. Should be more towards the East Coast. They've got some preliminary speakers. I don't know if it's listed here. But if you go to Dark Wolf Den's channel, then yeah, Cynthia Sue Larson was going to be in. Of course, Dark Wolf, Quantum Businessman. Yeah, I'm not sure if these are the old ones or the new ones, but looks like it's the new ones. Lodging to be determined. Anyway, I know that those three are definitely they said are gonna be in again. All right. So anyways, wanted to just bring your attention to that. If you want to go to the next one, try to slot out some time in June. Okay, got you. All right, this one is from Work Dove. And that's this, I've mentioned this before, but wild animals make a lot better pets in this timeline than my old timeline, because used to be if you had a wild animal, other than just a few very specific animals, they would just bite you. They were mean. Apparently, otters are this big pet craze in Japan now. So this was from Work Dove. Good find. Otter cafes and cute pets craze fuel illegal trafficking in Japan and Indonesia. Okay, so they recently banned imports of otters, but I'm sure there'll be no problem breeding the guys and having them all over the place. It didn't seem like they were that mean or anything. People pet them, blah, blah, blah. No one knows exactly where or when the otter pet craze began. Actually, that's kind of interesting, too. So suddenly everybody has otters as pets? I mean, I'm sure that there aren't like hundreds of people smuggling them in. Asian small-clawed otters. Used to be just one kind of otter. Now we have Asian small-clawed otters and probably a whole bunch of others. International trade may be banned. Looks like I have to have a subscription for the rest of this. Otters are being poached from the wild to become pets. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems to me like they would just breed them. It's not that hard. I don't really trust the storylines anymore. I guess they're trying to say that, gotta be membership again. Japan's obsession with otters. Yeah. Anyways, somehow they got to explain where all these otters came from. So I guess it's the wild, but it seems unlikely that a whole bunch of Japanese are that sneaky. Japanese are usually fairly law-abiding culture, too, so it's even more weird to think it would be them. It's not like, I mean, it's not the wild, wild west kind of environment over there. Looks like it got stuck again. Sometimes the chat just gets stuck. I'm pretty sure somebody said something since 5 minutes ago. Imagine going on a history or movie quiz show with all the changes and $1 million on the line. Yeah, you know, and you watch these shows and it's like all these Emmys get trotted out all the time. Like, I was watching a cooking show, and the subject of the cooking show was the Monopoly game. And then everybody had to make the Moneybags guy. Of course, they all made it without the monocle. It's like, it's a cooking show, but they were making like cakes, and then they were making them to be like Monopoly cakes. I'm like, it just seemed weirdly coincidental that they just happened to pick a Mandela Effect for it. Oh, Christina Gerald's asking about the elves. I think it was last week I had a thing on. There's a disease now that makes you look like an elf. Let's see if I can pull that one up really. do. Williams syndrome. It makes you look like an elf. Not really the pointy ears, but all right, these aren't the ones. Let me just type in Williams syndrome. That's what I need to have on here. Now, they don't look super like an elf, but I want to say yet. All right, so there's an Asian one. Now, I think I suspect they'll get more elven with time. But they get pointy teeth that are spaced apart, so that definitely looks kind of creature-like. Sunken nasal bridge, blue eyes with a starry pattern, small and widely spaced teeth, wide mouth, ear-to-ear smile, prominent lower lip, small chin, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so they say it's a disease that makes you look like an elf. Keep an eye on this because I suspect that you're going to see this become more and more extreme. And this whole look is kind of a look that I associate with this timeline, which is a narrower face, bigger eyes. Like there's more eye and mouth and less face. I noticed this even like 10 years ago. I started to see TV show characters that didn't seem like they had much cheek. I thought they were really strange looking at first. Like, where did they find that strange looking boy? And maybe that's why he's famous, because he's strange looking. But then there was like more and more of them. So it just seems like that's kind of how we're heading now. Less face, more eyes, more mouth. All right, here we go. All right, this one is from Reinventing the Wheel TV. So apparently a bunch of the Greek gods were now gay. I don't remember any of the Greek gods being gay. I do remember Greek and Roman, emperors and famous people, but not any of the actual gods. Now there was a whole bunch of them that had all kinds of that kind of relationship, bisexual. So that story is going backwards in time. A gay cupbearer on Mount Olympus. A lot of the famous gods now had histories of... Dang it, that is not the article I was looking for. Male lovers in the Trojan War. A gay cupbearer on Mount Olympus. A reading of Greek mythology reveals greater acceptance of homosexuality in ancient Athens than be boasted in today's world. These LGBT Greek gods and demigods prove gay culture is no modern invention. I don't know, it kind of goes over, this guy had a relationship with this male human, and 20 Greek gods who had same-sex relationships. Anyways, this is all supposed to be, always had been in the mythology. I really just suspect that no. All right. So that was by Reinventing the Wheel. All right, this one is an extra weird one. Guy moving. All right, we've talked before about it just seems like the surface of water is different now. Water moves differently. Ice performs differently. We've got ice donuts naturally occurring. So this is another example of weird. So basically this ice, it's like half-formed ice. So it becomes like saran wrap. I'm going to make this large. So he's able to put his hand under it and pull it up, and it like clings to his hand, and then it pulls all around. Which I don't think ice used to do that. I mean, either it would be slush and your hand would pop through, or it would be ice. But this is like a midway thing now, where it's kind of half solid, but half. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but that was weird. Weird. Guy moving his hand through ice. Ice on the verge of freezing. Saw that one on Reddit, as you may guess. Giant otters in the Amazon River. Yeah, there's like they were like 5 foot otters last I heard, and no, that was there were not 5 foot otters before. Life Matrix did the West Coast on November. Yeah, sorry, Dark Wolf. We don't count that as West Coast. That's like, I don't know. It's not West Coast. Nice try, though. I can't give you that one. Life Matrix, maybe you'll volunteer to help run it when it. So they'll be in East Coast, and then they've got to go back to the West Coast. So we can always have it San Diego like 2 times from now. That would be a good thing to have, though, I think. Airport travel is a lot easier around here, and this might be a better place to have for a wintertime one. We get a lot of snowbirds anyway. Wild animals should be kept wild unless they are unable to live in the wild. I mean, not according to current timelines, anyways. These animals now are walking into the cities. You've got koalas climbing up people to get a drink of water. Thirsty. A lot of animals are just not the wild animals they once were. So as much as I would have agreed with you in the past, this is the direction the timeline is heading. So I don't know what is should anymore. I just know this is the direction the timeline is heading. Suddenly there's otters everywhere, and they're nice, and there's these fennec foxes. I didn't have those in the old timeline. I actually researched attempts to domesticate wild foxes. I researched that specifically. There were no pet wild foxes except for a specific line that was developed in Soviet Union through repeated breeding practices, and there were very few of those. There was no fennec. There was no fennec fox. There were no sugar gliders. There were sure as heck no pet sugar gliders. The exotic pet that wasn't mean was either ferrets or skunks. And then you would get skunks, they got them descented so that they couldn't spray. Those are the only two. I mean, I worked at a pet store for many years. I love exotic animals. I researched them all. It was skunks and ferrets. That's it. Maybe you could make an argument for cheetahs because they weren't that mean, but there were a bunch of the stuff that they have now. No. So I mean, I understand that the mantra on media, wild animals should be left wild, but that's not what the timeline is doing. That's not where it's heading. I mean, it's now natural for these animals to be nicer. To come closer to humans. I started seeing this maybe 6 or 7 years ago. There started to suddenly be all these stories of animals coming to humans for help. Like, oh, I've got a jar stuck on my head. Like some wild animal would have a jar stuck on its head. So it'd come to like these hikers as if to ask them to remove the jar. And there's just no way my original timeline, if an animal was weakened or something, it would just hide from humans. The last thing it would do would go to the humans, but it's just different here. It's just so different. No tapirs, no capybaras. Yeah, they're older. And they were mean. Capybaras, when I first heard of them, I was pretty shocked. They were mean. There were no pet capybaras. Capybaras are like this super gigantic rodent thing. that they have now. It's like the size of a big dog. Apparently, they make pretty good pets. You have to kind of keep in the yard because they'll trash the house, but they don't bite or anything that much. They're pretty decent. I mean, when you think about compare these to cats, because let's face it, cats are, a lot of them are pretty little snippy little snots, and if you're trying to like force feed them medicine or something, they'll let you have it sometimes, and you will get scratches. So when you consider that cats are like that, I kind of compare all the wild animals now to cats. And if they're not being any meaner than like your average crabby cat, then I don't feel like they're very wild, because cats are already a little bit jerks sometimes. Bigger than dogs. Yeah, capybaras. How big are those little stinky things? Capybaras. Let's look at the capybara wiki. So yeah, it's just been like the last 3 years, and suddenly there's all these capybara pets. And, I've been saying it for like a year or more that all these animals are becoming pets. And there's just more and more of them all the time. So now we've got otters. Description. Heavy barrel-shaped body and short head. 20 to 24 inches tall. They weigh 35 to 66 kilograms. So 77 to 146 pounds. So like a huge stinking dog. A huge dog. 2 foot tall. I think they're like really bulky animals, but basically they're like a giant rodent. Are known to be gregarious. Sometimes they live solitarily. They're more commonly found in groups. Anyways, let's see. That's interesting because I'm starting to see a variation in colors now. Some of them look really orange in here. And these ones look really white. Mother and children. Are we going to get a color? Are we going to get a species shift here? A species split? They were all just brown for me. There were no orangey ones. What's this thing on the nose? Capybaras have a scent gland on their nose called a morillo. That's a new one. So they've got this... They've got this giant thing on their nose. I've never seen one with a giant thing on their nose. And that's not something you wouldn't notice, because the minute I saw this animal, I'm like, why does it have a giant tumor on its nose? So that's a new one, the scent gland thing. I've looked into these capybaras before, but it was kind of before I had this channel. So there we go. This one has it too. Right there. It's hard not to see that. Right away, you're like, what's on his nose? This is more the color like I remember them. Birds are pretty cheeky in this timeline too. Sitting right on the top of everything. It used to be they just sit on the slow-moving ruminants, but now apparently they sit on the top of everybody. Oh, yeah, a lot of them have those giant bumps. Okay, so yeah, another ME. Giant bumps on the capybaras. One intrepid has an acquaintance that died a second time. Just seems like there's more and more of these weird personal glitches are just becoming more common now instead of being these global glitches. The other thing that's weird is I noticed like on some of the subreddits, like the Mandela Effect subreddit on Reddit, there was a bunch of people saying that like Hillary Clinton's name for them just recently changed from 1 L to 2 L's. And so they're all on there like about a week ago going, oh my God, it's back to 2 L's. I mean, that's a shift that happened right before the election for me. So that was like a couple years ago. So they're just coming into the timeline now with the Hillary flip-flop. So it flips me out to see people going, oh my God, this changed. I'm like, that changed like 2 years ago. So it just seems like lately we've had this big influx of people. some of my games are gone from my computer. Looking for them online now. They are not made for Mac. Ho, 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 ho. You know you played them on your Mac, and now they're not there. Yeah, there was kind of a thing like that. A long time ago, I bought these certain beads. They were like made out of coconut shell, and they were kind of spiky shaped. And I was going to put them for sale on my website, and then I never got around to it for the longest time. I took the photos, but I never made the listing. It takes like a half hour to make the listing. There's always something else I wanted to do more, other listings I wanted to get done first. I just wasn't like excited about these things. So I finally sat down and I'm like, I'm going to take care of all these old photos and make the listings. And by then I couldn't remember how much I paid for them. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll log into where I bought them from because I have an account there, and I'll look at my history and I will see how much I paid for them. And I logged in, and there was no record of me having ever bought them. I'm like, I have them. I have photos of them. So then I went to my email because I never delete any potentially useful emails, and I checked my entire history of purchase from that company. And I even wrote on these that they came from that company. So, and I remember them coming from that company, and I also have it written. And what I do is I write down all the info, and then I take a photo of the info and I include it with all the other photos so that when I get to it, I'll have the important info. So according to all records, both my email and their website, I have never purchased these things. And it sends like 3 emails because you buy it, it sends an email, then you get an email that it's processing, then you get an email that it's shipped, then you get an email that it's delivered. None of those were in there. So that was extra weird because I have them though. They didn't disappear. I did find them. They're still selling them. So I just looked up the current price. I don't know. I mean, where did I get them from? I actually, I better make sure that I still have them up in the storage area because I wouldn't want to put the listing up and sell them and then not be able to find them on the shelf. I'm gonna have to check that tomorrow. So I don't know, just little stupid things like this makes me crazy. Times when people discover ME is different for many people. People don't talk about it much, though. Yeah, I know it's true. It's just usually it's been like 3 or 4 months difference, more like, oh, I saw that a couple months ago. Now it's like years. These people are just showing up, and I did that Emmy years ago. So it's just, I mean, I know it happens, but every time something gets a little more extreme, you're like, dope. I bought those damn games and now they are gone. Sorry. I wonder, do you get more money? Did more money show up in your bank account now, or did you spend it on something else that you forgot? Or maybe you have other games that you never had before. You might want to check that. Maybe you bought something else in this timeline with that money. All right, so where are we now? All right, this is one more that it's not really an Emmy, but I don't know, I feel like I'm really just looking at where the timelines are going. And this one kind of reminds me of the Star Trek one. So suddenly this is like everywhere. These food delivery robots. It looks like they've mostly got at the end of last year. So they were apparently instantly popular. So they've got these robots that basically they're starting them on campuses. You order food from nearby establishments and they put them in these robots, and the robots go to your they know where, somehow they know how to get to your place. I kind of wonder how they know where to stop, or and where your door is, because Google can't even figure out where my house is or my door is. They're off like by a quarter mile sometimes. But somehow these food delivery robots figure out where you are. So there was all these images of like dozens of these robots clogging the road and clogging they like to go on the ramps on the sidewalks. So like it's kind of like insta popular that there'd be like you just pan around and they're everywhere. So these are the most of them are these ones called Starship, which is kind of interesting after the Space Force logo. So they have like a locking mechanism, and they send you the unlock code. So people can't easily steal the food because they're locked. Food delivery robot catches fire. I haven't seen that one yet. So they're just like automated, but I guess one person is around that kind of monitors these things in case they get stuck. Like if they get stuck in a muddy trail or something. So they can go over curbs, but they can't go upstairs. So if you live on the top floor, I guess you just have to come down or something. But I don't know. It just suddenly these things, I mean, there's images of these things everywhere. And I was looking up them, and it doesn't seem like there really was hardly any around until the end of last year. And I've never heard of them. So I don't know. Is that where we're going? Is this the first volley of the robots? Don't know. Almost got hit by a car that wasn't there when I looked both ways to cross. Yeah, luckily you didn't. If there are other versions of ourselves in other timelines, are they different sentient souls with the same circumstances as us? Why did the other version of me do differently before I got here? I mean, I can't really know, but it just, from the kind of like the ancient mystics and stuff, and like the channeled stuff, they've been saying it since like the 60s or earlier. It seems like the theme is that like when you have like anytime you have kind of a hard decision, it operates sort of like quantum theory, where a quantum particle doesn't just take one path, it takes all the paths. So whenever two different things can be done, the quantum particle somehow does both of them. And then over here, if there's another two things that can be done, it takes both paths. So it takes all the paths at once. That's why quantum computers are so quick. Because an ordinary computer has to go and try this path, then it tries this path. It has to test every path one by one. And if there's millions and millions of paths, then it takes the computer a really long time, or maybe it'll never finish if there's too many options. So a small number of options, a regular computer can just test like 30 options, boom, 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 real quick. But if there's millions, if it's real complicated, then it takes them forever. But a quantum computer can kick butt because it just takes basically the time to take one path is all it needs, because it's doing them all at once. So I wonder if like human timelines are like that. Like every time there was a point where we made a decision, we basically explore both paths. And although I only remember the path I'm on, like there's versions of me that explore them all. I would guess that somehow we'd all have to be tied at some higher level or something. Like maybe we're just part of one entity exploring all these different things. I don't know. That's just my theory from what I've read. And I do find it very interesting that basically this whole thing seems to be paralleling quantum theory. Of course, now you have to wonder how legit quantum theory is, because the Matrix is the one who gave us the idea of quantum theory. So can we even trust the Matrix to tell us what's accurate? I don't know. I don't know. But interesting parallels. They could steal the whole robot. Yeah, the robots have apparently 360-degree cameras and some tracking devices, and they do have like a person who monitors the, like, not just one person monitoring one, but that kind of keeps an eye on the progress of all of them. So say one of them suddenly did something like off the track, that person would have access to all the video and tracking and like that. And they probably all have security numbers and all that. So it might be a little hard to hawk them. People could be immediately calling the police about their lost location. I'm sure they're not like super cheap. So anyway, apparently there hasn't been a big problem with them thus far because of all those things. Also, I mean, if you stole one, it has to work within the network. Has to be programmed and operated within the network. So I'm not sure how useful it would be if you stole, like, say, one of these Starship ones, and you're not going to be able to operate it unless you have all of the software, and that's probably licensed out. So if you're suddenly trying to hook this one up, it probably has its own security number programmed in, and it's going to be stolen, and suddenly you turn up having it. I don't know. Those things probably are a lot of reason why they're not stolen. Now, there have been cases of people trying to steal the food out of them and leave the robot behind, but been having trouble sleeping lately. I've been having problems sleeping since the 90s, just off and on. I have been better lately. I don't know, last few weeks you might see I just look a lot more awake, and I'm not like, while I'm out here eating differently. The ironic thing is that my current diet basically goes against everything they ever tell you to do. Everything the Matrix tells you is healthy, I'm doing the opposite. So I'm basically eating like pure saturated fat. I'm not joking. I feel amazing. I feel so much healthier. I've ditched the anti-inflammatories. I'm gonna keep with this diet for a while and make sure. But I've actually lost some weight. I'm not even trying. I feel so good, and I'm starting to really question the current storylines, because if you look back 100 years ago, when everybody ate nothing but animal fat and butter, they were like way thinner and way healthier than us. And also, some people have been researching this, have come up with some science to explain down to even how the electrons work and how the Krebs cycle and the mitochondria and the cell and how it signals. They've kind of figured out a lot of this down, why long chain saturated fats might signal certain ways for the cells to do certain things. I'm going to keep with the diet for a while, but if it keeps going like this, I probably will do a video on it, just because I'm so impressed with how I feel right now. I've really come to think that like this world is like opposite land. It's like everything they tell you on TV is like almost everything. It's like completely opposite of the truth. Everything that they tell you leads to happiness doesn't. I mean, rich people are some of the most miserable people I know on average, not all of them, but just stuff like that. So that when I think of it that way, it doesn't seem that weird that I'm doing this. But like I said, there is some really interesting science why it may work too. Fat actually makes you lose weight. It's not. Here's the thing, though. That has been a thing in keto and paleo for a while. But according to this diet, it has to be saturated fat. You cannot. You have to avoid the polyunsaturated fatty acids, which is the complete opposite of what they say. And it's kind of hard because you can't. Everybody always says don't eat processed foods, but what is it about the processed food that's bad? According to this science, a lot of the problem may be like the polyunsaturated fatty acids, the canola oil, the mazola oil, corn oil, all of those oils that were not in our diet 100 years ago. We did not eat that much polyunsaturated fatty acid. It is true that the PUFA, as they call it, is essential, but only in small amounts. You don't need a lot of it, and we never did have anywhere near the levels we have now. You need a little bit of omega-3, you need a little bit of omega-6, but in the ancient times, we ate mostly animal fat, butter, almost all of our foods. Very few things were polyunsaturated fatty acids. There'd be fish, nuts. I'm trying to think what else. Fish, nuts. That would be the majority of it. And the fish was fresh. So the polyunsaturated fatty acids were all fresh. One thing about PUFA is that it's very unstable. It goes rancid really rapidly. When you eat fresh fish, it's okay, but a lot of the stuff we eat now is probably already rancid. PUFA cannot tolerate high heat, yet all these corn oils and stuff are made with high heat mostly. So canola oil and everything nowadays. Well, anyway, something to think about. The science is a little bit complicated, so I'd have to really lay it out. Basically, if you're fat and tired, I suggest you try this diet because it works especially for those people. Also, if you're skinny fat. Also, I have to say my mood and my attitude is a lot better now. I'm not nearly as impatient. I'm getting a lot done at work, a lot more. I mean, literally, I'm getting like double because I just, I don't know, my brain doesn't get tired, and I used to be that by the time I got home, I'm just like, but now I'm like, oh, I'm just going to do this one more thing. So yeah, it's, I'm going to spend all I need to on this diet because it's paying for itself. I'm getting so much more work done, and that is income. So it will definitely pay for itself. I'm hesitant to totally go for it by advertising it yet because I want to experiment with it more. And this whole concept basically that the way the saturated fats are processed in the mitochondria may in a large part overrule the influence of high insulin levels. And that's a big one. And you know, I don't even know if this was even a thing 5-10 years ago with the old body. It may be that the old body had totally different needs than where we are now. So this may have been the wrong thing in 5 years ago's timeline. But I'll tell you, the last few years I felt like crap. I just felt more and more tired. I guess I thought I was getting old. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until it got better. So that might be this timeline thing. But here's what's great is, you know, you can still eat a moderate amount of carbohydrates and you eat saturated fat. That is some good food. I mean, that is some tasty food. You basically are eating really, really tasty food, and then you feel full. So even though this stuff has more calories in it, you eat like a moderate amount, and then you're full. You don't want any more. So it feels like I pigged out. But then when I look at the calorie count, I'm like, that was only 600 calories, and I felt stuffed for like 8 or 10 hours. I feel full. So I'm not craving now. You know, I used to, by the time dinner came around, I was like, I want dinner now. I'm hungry now. I just, you know, now I'm like, I'm busy. I got stuff to do. I'll eat later. It just, the whole attitude is different. And I sleep better. I do sleep better. And I've been sleeping less because I've been sleeping better. I mean, there was times I was sleeping 10, 11 hours, which I thought maybe it's just because the hours are shorter in this timeline. But now I've cut off hours off of my sleeping. I still have days when I'm more tired and less tired, but the overall level is just so different. You know, the tired days now are are like my best days before. So there's still, you know, and that still might be effects of shift, but just my ability to deal with the shift has changed a lot, it seems like. Anyway, I know it kind of flies in the face of everything. And you can do this on without eating a lot of animal fat too, because um, the cacao, the chocolate bean, um, the fat from that is very high saturated fat, very high long chain saturated fats, and also coconut. Coconut has is one of the best foods for this diet. A lot of long chain fatty acids, so you don't have to be like pounding the animal fat to do this. You can there's good sources that are entirely in the plant community. And if you look at ancient cultures, a lot of them subsisted on high amounts of coconut. I have phantom limb pains that get away heavy on your sleep. Yeah, that's another thing. I used to get kind of this restless leg kind of a thing. I don't know if it really was that, but it sure sounded like it. Dialed it way back now. I barely feel it now. 2 to 3 hours, then wide awake. Yeah, it's a common problem with all the affected, I think, is this thing. It used to be like 5, 6 hours, then wide awake. Then it was like 2 to 3 hours and wide. Now it's gone back to more 5 to 6 hours wide awake, but for less time, and then back to sleep. I'm doing the same thing. Butter and real things are my friend. Real things, but high sat fat. The other argument that they're making is that I always assume that pork and chicken, like chicken skins, would be high saturated fat. But the problem with them is that they are fed so much artificial stuff now, corn oil and canola, and all of their fat sources are PUFA now. So they actually, since they're not ruminants, they can't convert that. Ruminants can convert what they eat into something else. And when your body makes its own fat, your body makes it approximately 50% saturated fat and 50% MUFA, which is monounsaturated fatty acids. It does not make any into PUFA. So the body itself prefers, it prefers saturated fat and MUFA as its for all its many things like cell membranes and stuff. That, I mean, you've got to have a lot of fat because all your cell membranes are made out of fat. So the body prefers that, but if you eat PUFA, then our bodies, since we're not ruminants, just incorporate it. Our body does not have a mechanism to change that fat once we eat it. It can change saturated fat to MUFA, but it cannot do anything with PUFA. But the ruminants can. So one of the arguments is that although pork used to be highly saturated fat, in the last 10 years, that's really changed, at least in America. I mean, if you're in some third world country with the older school processes for animal husbandry, you're fine. And if you go to such countries, you'll find that a lot fewer people are fat too. And even the lazy, rich people who have 5 maidservants to do all their work, even they are not that fat like Americans are. So I don't think it's just because we're lazy, because I mean, I've definitely known people who dig ditches for a living and they're really, really fat. And I've definitely known people in third world countries that don't hardly lift a finger and they're still thin. They've got access to the old school foods. All right, anyway, that's not really Mandela Effect related, unless you want to argue that, and this may really be the case, whatever was true for food intake and body and stuff 10 years ago, I don't know if it's still true. It may have totally changed on its ear now. There's so many things we don't know. It's like once I figure out the owner's manual for this body, I get the upgrade, and now the owner's manual doesn't work. And then instead of giving you a new owner's manual, you have to figure it all out by punching buttons. It's like very inefficient. General sorrow, it's fish and nuts. Okay, just to clarify, I'm sure you knew. My mother gave me canned milk and corn syrup for formula. Yeah. Have you ever looked in the ingredients for that infant formula? It's disgusting. It's just basically like some bits out of the milk, like whey and milk proteins, and then they add like corn syrup and a bunch of garbage. It's just chemicals. It's milk plus chemicals. It's amazing to me that baby humans could even survive on that crap. Hydrogenated vegetable oil. Yeah, those don't even exist in nature. They're basically squashing hydrogens onto. They want to have a fat that is solid at room temperature. So when they make their, like, your cakes and cookies, you don't want, like, to see grease oozing off of them. So they want that grease to be, like, solid. And so they alter the oils by adding hydrogen so that they solidify. In the old days, they used to just use saturated fat, which naturally is solid at room temperature. But even those, sometimes if it gets really hot, it can kind of screw them up. They'll melt and then re-solidify, and it might look gross. So now they just hydrogenate stuff. And it's a totally alien fat source, and it's like in all the processed foods, pretty much. That and canola oil. It's all backwards. Yeah, I'm really starting to suspect, and it scares the heck out of me, that like everything now, everything we hear is backwards from reality. Captain Kirk has the traditional starburst. Spock and other blue shirts have a circle. Yeah, the logos on each Star Trek character now that they wear are all different. They used to just have the one Star Trek logo, and all the shirts, they were different colors, but they all had the same logo. In this timeline, they all carry different logos. I totally agree. Somebody brought that up on Redcon a while back. I totally agree that is not how I remember it. I also think the logos are a lot bigger in my time. I guess I'll just bring it up here. See if I can find the cast with their costumes on. Doop doop. Let's see if that one's going to be big enough. It looks kind of small. No, that's too tiny. Here. This one, I think, is big enough. All right, so first of all, I don't remember these as big. Okay, now in this one, let's see if I can show it. They're also weirdly shiny in that one. You can't really see anything. Ugh, too tiny. All right, so there's Kirk's. So it's basically what's inside. There is the doctors. He's got a little this and that. This is engineering. See, they all have their own little logos in there. Now, that last image I showed, they were all super shiny, so you can't see anything. I don't remember what that one. Okay, here's that was command, that was sciences, operations, and medical. I don't remember any of those, actually. I don't remember any of that stuff in the middle. I just remember it being the outline only. So these are just bigger and more widely, like the fingers are a little wider than I remember. But that's what it looks like now. It kind of makes sense. It has to be bigger because if they were my original size, you're not going to see that little emblem inside. It has to be bigger so you could see it. But I don't remember that being there anyway. Other people brought that up, and I totally agree. I don't remember it, and I think the logos are... Other people have not brought up that the logos are bigger, that the, whatever you want to call that is. Well, here's some other ones. Operations, sciences, cadets. Trainees are the only one that has the plain one now. Anyways, yeah, no. I don't know, you kind of have to have been a Trekkie to really notice that little plather, but don't remember the emblems. Calm badge, that's what it is. Yeah, that's right. Simon King, yeah, you're mentioning the Trump Space Force. I actually covered that in the beginning of the live stream, how his new logo looks like the Star Trek one. I worked with a psychiatrist who took an older man off his statins because he was having dementia symptoms, totally stopped his symptoms. He was okay. Yeah, there's been quite a number of stories I've heard where people, you got this little symptom and then they put you on a medicine, and then 2 years later you have a new problem. They put you on another medicine. Pretty soon, you're 60 and you're on 8 medicines. And there's been a number of people who just said screw it, and they tapered off all their medicines, and they got a lot healthier. It was like 95% of their problems were just side effects from the 8 medicines they were on, and the original problem was like that big. And then by the time they're on all these medicines, I mean, I don't want to say that every medicine is bad for you, but there's something going on that just ain't right with everybody on all these medicines all the time. And I think, the food, and there's something, I think we need to look at it better than just accept that everybody needs to be on like all these medicines. Cows just eat grass, massive animal. What people think that they need to eat beef, I'll never understand that. Well, cows have like 4 stomachs, so that's how they eat grass. We don't have 4 stomachs. We have a short intestines, so we're not going to be able to eat grass because we can't digest it. Anyway, I will, if I stay on this diet, I will definitely put up the science. There's, if you can understand, it's a little bit complicated because it really goes into the chemistry and the whole cycle. I don't know if you remember the Krebs cycle, but it's basically the processing cycle of the mitochondria, and how the food gets processed, and electrons get stripped, and so it's actually really specific, interestingly. Then there's a whole bunch of research that actually really unfortunately, most research on fat does not distinguish between the fat types. The few ones that you find on saturated fat usually don't compare saturated fat intake directly to all-cause mortality. They'll usually say, it increases some other little thing, which we think is bad because of this, which we think affects that, which we think affects heart attacks. But they don't often go saturated fat compared to heart attacks. Now, they do check fat intake compared to heart attacks, but you consider most of the fat sources now are canola oil and trans fat and stuff like that. French fries are used to be fried in beef tallow, and now they're fried in, I don't know, what is it? It's one of the new vegetable oils that they usually do. The vegetable oils can't tolerate high heat, so there's going to be a lot of trans fat in there, but they use it anyway. You really should be using a saturated fat to do high heat cooking, but they don't. I mean, that's even just known that that PUFA cannot tolerate high heat, yet they do it anyway. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Another one is the antioxidants. All the time we hear about antioxidants are good to you. If you actually look at the scientific research, very few studies have shown any positive results for antioxidants as a supplement. Yes, eating fruit and vegetables have shown some good results, but actually eating pills of antioxidant, the majority of them either find nothing, no result, or it's actually bad for you. So just keep in mind when they're pushing the antioxidants that the science is not there for antioxidants at all. The two LDL aren't checked. One is okay to have. They just lump the LDL into one and then test HDL. Yeah, there's a lot of issues. A lot of issues, and there's a lot of assumptions, even with the LDL and stuff, and how cholesterol. Because cholesterol is associated with something doesn't mean it causes it. There are people with really high cholesterol that are super healthy, and there are people with really low cholesterol who have really bad clogged arteries. So if cholesterol by itself was responsible for this, that should not be the case. Cholesterol is actually a little bit of a weak indicator of how many problems you'll have. You've got people freaking out over their cholesterol, and they're totally healthy, and they don't have any plaque buildup, and they're eating a bunch of weird food to try to bring their cholesterol down. And you got people who have low cholesterol who think they're all healthy, and they're like walking plaque factories. So it's this whole cholesterol thing, I think, is a little bit of a red herring. Just because something is correlated does not mean it's causal. I mean, that's like basic science, but for some reason, like 90% of the scientists seem to have forgotten that. Low cholesterol is associated with high morbidity. I know that that's the case for the elderly, in fact. If elderly have low cholesterol, their chances of dying in the near future are very high. Also, cholesterol in the blood performs an immune function. So low cholesterol can be quite dangerous because it hurts your immunity. Check the creation of Eve. I don't even know what that is, the creation of Eve. Is that like an art thing? Get rid of stuff. Oops, looks like hello, Google. Hopefully I'm still live. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay, we're not talking about art. We're talking about taking a rib from Adam. How did God make Eve? In the second narrative, God fashions Adam from dust and places him in the garden. Eve is created from one of Adam's ribs. All right. Created from one of Adam's ribs is my timeline. Is there more that I'm missing? How was Eve created? I'll look at this one. Oh, okay. So now they're saying there's more than one version of the story. The King James Version says that Adam's rib was used in the creation of Eve, but now they're going to say there's a translation error, I bet you. All right, here we go. The King James Version says that the Adam's rib was used in the creation of Eve. The word translated rib is the Hebrew word tesela. Is used more than 30 times. It refers to the side of Adam. In the Sumerian language, one of the most ancient known to humanity, the word for rib also means life. In this context, it is clear that the woman was created from the life of the man. Life comes from life. Thus, God made Eve from the life of Adam. This is consistent with the biblical doctrine of creation. Life only comes from life. It does not come from non-life. Well, the rib is not non-life. It was living when it was in Adam. Huh, interesting. I don't know, this whole translation thing. I mean, everything is like, oh, they're just changing its translations. We're all stupid if we don't realize it's translations. Creation of Adam and creation of Eve in the Sistine Chapel. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see what that looks like. Chapel. Dum, dum. Creation of Eve, by Michelangelo. Come on, computer, you could do it. Okay. Well, I know I've never seen that before. I guess that's it. After restoration. Well, at least his God's butt's not hanging out in that one like that other Sistine Chapel one. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I was an expert on the Sistine Chapel. I've just been watching those couple of specific images that we're always watching, like that one. Looks pretty much the same as last time I looked, as far as I could tell. Okay, where are we? Space Force. Pet otters. Got you. Got I. All right. We don't have any spiders today, but we got to have worms. Jumping worms are the latest invasive species to hit Illinois, and yet silently, stealthily, another invader has crept into our state, our city, even our backyard. Jumping worms, aka crazy worms, Alabama jumpers, or snake worms. They're underfoot when you walk the park. They show up when you're gardening. Blah, 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 blah. Are jumping worms dangerous? So these guys are bad for the ground. They cause severe damage of roots. Along with other invasive worms, can also spread invasive plant species by disturbing the soil. It used to be that the worms aerated the soil, but now apparently they used to aerate the soil and let water in. But now they're saying, oh, all their holes let water drain away and nutrients are draining away, and like the whole worm story is totally on its butt. I don't know what to say. The creepy, damaging, invasive, you don't know from cool, blah blah blah, crazy worms. Okay, let me see if I can find a video of some of these jumping worms. So basically they're really wiggly, and they'll normal worms are like kind of lackadaisical. They seem pretty helpless. But jumping worms, they're like, and then they jump out of the pan, and it's creepy. Jumping worms. And so there's all these articles where, they're everywhere now, and nobody realized how many jumping worms had spread everywhere.
San Diego homeowners, if you have a power meter like this on the side of your house.
Skip ad. All right, so there's jumping worms. See, they just like bounce right out. They're like little mini snakes because they're so vigorous. And sometimes they're just kind of go boink. So these are the crazy worms. They look just like normal worms, except for they are crazy. It's kind of interesting that this showed up right around the same time we noticed that the gummy worm faces had changed. I'm not sure what the connection is other than they're both worms. But anyway, so if you see super vigorous worms, it's these new crazy jumping worms. It's not just Wisconsin. There's a bunch of other places that they showed up, and it's this big, oh my God, they're taking over and ruining the soil and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Hard for me to take it too seriously. All right, I'm going to come back to that one last. I seem to have foolishly lost my place. See if I can get back to there we go. YouTube not receiving data. Hopefully you guys start. Because that was like from 2 hours ago. All right, here we go. Yes, receiving data. Why do they move so fast? Because they're crazy worms. Crazy worms move fast. I think they're just the new upgraded worm, personally. They don't have a face that I saw. They look like normal worms. Where does all the water go? In the ground to the iron core, then get boiled off by molten middle. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, every story that worms used to be good, they were good for all these reasons. Now it's like these worms are bad for the same reasons, by poking too many holes in the ground and draining off too much water. I'm like, what did they make, like, holes to like 50 feet down and all the water, you know? I mean, isn't the water table already down there? I don't know. The whole thing is just like, what? Geiger's work changed a lot. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm not going to put that stuff up because some of it's pretty not safe for work, but... And also, I just didn't know it enough to really know. I mean, I definitely have art. I'm looking at it right now in my house that's changed, but I knew that art. So I can't say the same for, like, Geiger, that I knew specific works of his enough. All right, so where am I now? Okay, Tartaria. Now, I think I've covered before. I totally remember when this came out that it was Tartaria. Tartari. So Tartaria is now Tartari. Some YouTube's still calling it Tartaria. And it's a word I've never heard before. So a lot of people now are using for the word tartars. So here it says tartar, right? Because I typed it in. But even though I typed in tartar, apparently most people are calling them, like, see, this is the most preferred word, is tatars. So that totally made me laugh because it makes them sound like they're potatoes. The tatars are a Turkic ethnic group. Tartar redirects here, or Tatar redirects here, not to be confused with Tartari. Actually, I'm not even seeing the Tartars at all now. Historically, the term tatars or tartars. So you have to go all the way down here before they even mention tartars now. Basically, they're tatars now, not tartars. Some people still use tartars, but it looks like tatar is the preferred spelling. And like the thread that I was on, everybody in the entire thread used the word tatar. I've never seen that before. They were tartars. 100% tartars. The form tartar has its origin in either Latin or French, coming from Western Europe languages, from Turkish and Persian. From the beginning, the extra R was present in Western forms, and according to the Oxford English Dictionary, this was most likely due to an association with Tartarus. No, it was probably more like tartar sauce, to be honest. Anyway, everybody suddenly knows it's tatars, and like 3 months ago, it was tartars. So as much as you want to say we got re-educated or something, I just can't see that. Like, everybody on that Reddit thread suddenly knew how to use it. Russians and Europeans use the name tatar. So anyway, It's Tartari and Tatar now. Got to keep up with the latest program. All right. Another weird, creepy moth, but kind of cool looking. See if that's enough to find it. Dun, 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 dun. Let's make you large. All right, so what's that thing? It's a creepy, crawly, I don't know, giant potato chip with wiggly arm things and a giant... All right, so what is that thing? That was on Reddit 6 days ago, as you can see, which is where I heard about this from. So you can always scroll down and somebody will always know what it is, including the scientific name. Phobotron pithecium. Phobotron, that's kind of a cool name. Phobotron pithecium. Pithecium. Hogmoth. All right, so there is a big image of one. So it's like basically the larval form of this moth. So it's basically a big fat caterpillar. There's another one. It's got all these appendages. I don't see how that's very efficient because it moves really slow with all these, like, this one's got even more appendages. Supposedly it's not poisonous. Looks like there's quite a variation in the number of appendages. So it's like the world's whitest caterpillar, basically. I can't imagine how that would be super useful. Why not just have the spines on the main body? Why have all that? I'm wondering, in this one it holds it up. Anyway, creepy looking thing. I looked them up and they were basically saying they're common sight in orchards. There's a lot of places where these things supposedly exist and they're commonly seen. Okay, so yeah, no, I don't know. Have anybody seen these? They're such a common sight in orchards. They eat like a lot of orchard tree leaves and stuff. Looks like there's some other variations of them. That's interesting because this is also a Phobotron pithecium, but it's totally different colors. That guy's a whole nother colors. You know, my old timeline, if it was one species, they'd have very similar coloration, but in this timeline, there's huge range of colors. How is this one a Phobotron pithecium? It has totally different fuzz. This one has another look. That's also Phobotron pithecium. They look all totally different from each other. They look like whole different creatures. So I mean, it's getting hard to tell species if there's that much variation in between one species. I mean, this and this would not be the same species in my old timeline. That would be something else. I'm like that. I guess that just because he's the underside. They also have apparently these underdeveloped feet, so they're just like these nubs. So that's part of the reason they're like slow as molasses. I don't know what the advantage of having nub feet are, but all right. So those things are pretty weird. Meteor burst communications. I've not heard of that. Meteor burst communications. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover that. Let me just see what it is. is a radio propagation mode that exploits the ionized trails of meteors during atmospheric entry to establish brief communication paths between radio stations up to 2,250 kilometers. Yeah, no, I've not heard of that. You know, for some time now, there's been this story that you could bounce signals off the atmosphere at a certain angle. I always thought that was weird because it just seems to me like, you know, the atmosphere layers are not like, there's not like a solid thing there. So it's basically you're shooting the signal up. I just don't see how it would still be cohesive coming down. It should be bouncing at all different weird angles and spreading out all over the place. Yet somehow it's supposed to still come out as this cohesive signal. So meteors scatter would be the same for me. I mean, there's not just one giant chunk they're bouncing off of. I just don't get. So apparently in current timeline, when they say they're bouncing it off the atmosphere, sometimes they're even saying that it bounces so far, then it bounces off the ground, then it bounces off the atmosphere again. How is it that the signal doesn't get all scattered and just nonsensical? I don't get that. That does not make sense to me. It should just be, you know, it's like when you shine a flashlight into grains of sand. It doesn't look like the original beam anymore. It's all flickery and all over the place, and it looks nothing like the original signal because each one of those grains of sand reflects it slightly differently. So that whole storyline now, it gets weirder and weirder. Did Genghis Khan, is that what Genghis Khan is now? Is it Genghis Khan? DZ. I never know if something's a typo or a Mandela anymore. Dizzy. Are you serious? It really is that? Did I mean Genghis Khan? Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan was Genghis Khan. Yeah, I haven't seen that. That must be kind of a new one. Genghis Khan. Chinggis Khan, I guess. Genghis Khan. Okay. What? I cry, Uncle. I don't know. I don't know. Genghis Khan. I don't know. I just don't know. All right. All right. This one is from. Okay. So yeah, Phobotron Pacificum was from user Thortman, which was on Reddit. He's not like a Mandela guy though, but he's the one who found that in the truck. And this next one is by Melissa Gasbare, who's a commenter on the channel. I think I've covered some of this before, but see if that's enough to find it. Our average normal body temperature may no longer be 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I swear that was 98.7 degrees, but in this timeline it was 98.6 degrees. But now they're saying, oops, all this time we were wrong. Which seems ridiculous because that's got to be one of the easiest number crunches ever. For like 50 years or more, they've been taking human body temperatures and writing it down on your chart. I mean, it would have been easy as pie to just gather these all up and divide by the number of humans that were involved, and then they should have it. Shouldn't be that complicated. I just can't see how they couldn't get that right. So basically they're saying, here's the chart over here, 98.6 is higher than the average, and most are more like 97 point something. Which is interesting because mine was always like 1 to 2 degrees lower, always, than 98.6 for the longest time. And then the last time I took it, I was 95. It was actually 95, which is, and I felt fine too, which is basically nearly hypothermic. So then I took it today, and it was actually 98.6, which is really high for me. Since I started this diet, it's been more variable. I felt fine both times, though. I felt fine today, and I felt fine when it was 95. All right, so now they're saying that your temperature can be really low in the morning and then get higher. I think it was morning. All right, so this one is saying maybe it's changed recently. Maybe the metabolic rate has dropped off. Today's normal body temperature is lower than the past, is the hypothesis. All right, this is interesting because I didn't read this in the last article. This is a different article. All right, so they're actually, I think it might here, was saying that it's different in morning and at night, which I just saw this earlier today. Let me just check when it was saying. Okay, yeah, so they're saying it's lower in the morning, testing in the morning and see if it's 95 again, because that was pretty weird. They actually were saying that it was like hypothermia at 95, and I felt totally normal. So I don't know what's going on, but I don't know if it's a new diet or what, but my temps are kind of varying quite a bit lately. And I have to say, though, I feel so much better now. Almost like a normal person, almost. Probably just messing with the thermometers. You know, I have one really old thermometer that I still use. It's the same thermometer. So unless they snuck in there and somehow altered it in my cabinet, it's the same one. But was always taught that 98.6 was the average. It was 98.7. I am absolutely positive there was a 0.7 on there. I've always run low body temp and would have low-grade fevers, and then the doctors tell me I wasn't sick, and then I get worse. Best to know what your personal average is. My normal temp has always been 37. I don't know what that is in Celsius to Fahrenheit. Let me see. Celsius to Fahrenheit. It's 37 is 98.6. So you are totally in the normal range. That's something people might want to just kind of check out and see what their current temps are. I'm kind of curious myself. Is it the same as it used to be? Yeah, she's talking Celsius. I mean, when I saw that 37, I said the same thing. I'm like, what? Oh, Celsius people. Yeah, you'd be worse than hypothermic. You would be super dead. I got a cold before Christmas. I can't shake it off. Comes, goes. Docs gave steroids. I have covered this before. Never before did they used to give steroids, an immune suppressor, when you were sick. It's all backwards land, but they gave me an immune suppressor last time I was sick, and it worked great. In fact, that was the last time I was sick and saw a doctor. And when I tried to come back a few months later, I took prednisone and kicked it back. Pow! It was like a boot to the face of that cold. I feel great when I'm on prednisone too. It's actually kind of makes me sad because I only had to take it for a few days for a cold, and I feel great the entire time, but I don't want to be on prednisone forever. So that's like totally weird, but yes, they are telling you now that immune suppressors are good for treatment of colds. I still have trouble wrapping my brain around that. It used to be they would treat like overactive immune system problems like asthma, allergies, rashes. They would treat those with prednisone, but not germ attacks. I mean, what sense does that make? You have a germ attack and you're going to kick back your immune system? But it works. It works. Anyway, yeah, weird. Anyway, so that one was from Melissa Gasbare. Good find, good find. Tartars. Okay, I left this last one. I think I've got everybody. Eyes. Pet otters. All right, I left this last one because it's like the one that's probably going to make me lose my my place in the search ranking, at least for a while. I'm going to just check really quick and see, but I bet you if I haven't lost it already, info and settings. Let me just see where I'm at. Oh, I've lost my monetization already. Yep, it doesn't take long, does it? Yep. All right, there's something I said. I probably said like one word or something that made me. But it's supposedly, if you talk about themes as part of a scientific review or something, it's not supposed to be unsafe for work, and that's how this one's going to be. Okay, so the first one is kind of, I don't know what to say, but apparently now, how do I describe this? Babies in the womb, like human babies, okay? Human babies, partway through their gestation, grow a mustache and become hairy. Now, I've heard in the past that we went through the cycles like a lizard did, like we grew a tail and then we lost a tail. I have never once heard that we become hairy. All right, so, and supposedly now it is not uncommon and considered normal if babies are born with hair on them, like on their body and stuff. They like 30% of babies are born kind of hairy. And they have a special word for the hairy. It's called lanugo. All right. Why we are not naked even in the womb? How come I can't click on that? All right, where is it? What most of us don't know is that not only are we not entirely hairless as adults, we are not even naked in the womb. About 4 months into a normal 9-month cycle, when the fetus is 5.3 inches, it grows a mustache. Fine hair forms on the upper lip. Gradually, over the next month or so, the fine hair spreads to even eventually cover the entire body. The unborn baby remains completely hairy for many weeks. This soft, hairy coat is called lanugo. The word is from the Latin lan and means woolly down. This hairsuit is shed before or soon after birth. Here's the thing, or soon after. So even like full-term babies sometimes still have this, and it's considered normal. Each hair of the lanugo is shed one by one, so most of the hair in most babies is lost when it's still in the womb. So they're saying it's shed one by one and then swallowed by the baby. The tiny hair joins mucus, bile, and other products to form a black substance called meconium. Just after birth, this meconium is excreted by the newborn in its first bowel movement. I don't remember them having a bowel movement until they nursed from their mother. And they were supposed to have like this pristine digestive tract before that, and then they got their bacteria and stuff from the mother's milk. One must admit this is a rather interesting way of ridding ourselves of our first unwanted clothes. After we shed our lanugo, most of us are born with hair only on our head, eyebrows, and eyelashes. This fine non-pigmented hair of infancy is called vellus. So I was looking this up in another location, and they were saying like 30% of full-term babies are born with much of the lanugo still on their body. Weirdly, I couldn't find many images of it, and most of the images I did find were of people. Okay, so here's one. See, all this black stuff is supposedly the lanugo on this baby. And even girls get all this body hair and stuff. It's not just the boys. There's not a lot of images of it, though, weirdly. All right, so look at all the hair, and it's fairly dark on these babies. Now, most of these, see, it says lanugo hair, but this is actually a werewolf child baby that had, and this one is also, but I don't know what to say, but, you know, these babies are being born hairy, basically, and 30% of them, full term, still have it. That's the current timeline. You know, I covered a long time ago how the chin hair on men I don't remember it being all the way down on the neck like it is. It used to be that this hair would hang down over the neck, but from when I was a child, I just don't remember people having like hair, like men and young, you know, high schoolers having all this hair all over there. And then we've got this saying neck beards, in case you didn't already know, you will know because of the saying neck beards. All right, so anyway, it's normal for children to be born hairy, and if they're not, they ate it while it was in the womb. I don't know, that's just weird. Somebody donated $1. Appreciate it. Every little bit helps. I can't get into the in and outs of baby bowel movements. It's from the breakdown of the bile or something. Well, now it's from the eating of the hairs of the lanugo is part of it. They eat their own hairs. Oh, there's another one. I almost forgot to add this. Let me see. All right. There's another time that you grow lanugo. All right. So see this child with hair? Okay. You apparently grow lanugo if you don't, like if you're anorexic or you don't eat enough food. So, I've never heard this before, but now it is considered a sign of anorexia if you grow this lanugo. So the argument is that anorexics, because their body fat, like they're too thin to maintain their body temperature, so the body has them grow lanugo. What I don't get is that the hair is obviously, to me, it is too thin and fine to really keep you warm. And you're already almost out of resources, right? Because you're starving. I can't find hardly any info, like images of this. I don't know if it's like really new. But you're already low on resources. Are you going to waste resources growing hair? People who are malnourished may grow this hair on their face and body because lanugo protects the skin and body. Why does the body grow lanugo in a person with anorexia nervosa? This occurs in eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia. Bulimia, I mean, I don't remember you're not usually really skinny in bulimia, so why would you grow lanugo? Actually, I just saw that. bulimia. Let me just see if lanugo. Because, I mean, so lanugo rarely appears in adulthood. When it does, it's almost always due to advanced stage eating disorders, particularly anorexia. So it's not just anorexia. Lanugo and eating disorders. I wonder if this is going to expand to more and more reasons why we might get lanugo. It seems like this timeline likes its hairy beasts. It's not uncommon for babies to be born with lanugo still covering their bodies. Lanugo often grows where no hair is normally present, including chest, back, arms, neck, and face. They also said there could be some like hormonal things that cause lanugo to grow in an adult, but they didn't say what they were. Skin signs in anorexia nervosa. So anyways, so anorexia or bulimia or babies, all of you can have lanugo. I don't remember learning about it when I researched ED all the time. Cousin It was born hairless. I heard about anorectics have hair all over them. Not in my old timeline. That is totally flipping me out. I don't know if you guys had it, but I sure didn't. So California and Mr. Biffle show two things at 99 cents. Appreciate it. Double whammy. Neck beard is more common now. I just don't remember anybody having a bunch of hair all over their necks, like in the 70s and 80s. I don't remember anybody having that. All right, so I've covered this last one before for other animals. I don't think I've covered it for humans. I've talked about, the thing where basically it's immaculate conception, where there are many species now that can reproduce without a male. In the old timeline, that was just considered the death of a species because they would not get the proper needed intermixing of the genetics, and then they would stagnate and they would not be properly prepared for changing environments. And I never really quite understood why it was so horrible, but apparently in this timeline it's not horrible at all because a lot of animals do it. There's also been this big trend towards the females being able to save the DNA from the male inside of them somewhere. And I covered a few weeks ago or so that chickens would save for, why was it 5 days or longer? I can't remember. It was a while that they could save the male DNA and then they could become pregnant later because they had somehow saved it. So apparently now humans can do that too. And do that. I'm going to type in 10 days just because. Sperm may survive in a woman's body not just for 5 days, but for 10 days or more, widening the fertile window. Okay, so apparently women have these crypts in their, where is it? Somewhere in there. Very scientific. Cervix. Wait, no, that's not it. Where they store the men's DNA afterwards for a lot of places are saying 5 days. I've never heard of any days. I've never heard of there being storage crypts in the uterus. Okay. In the uterus. There's like pocket areas. They're calling them crypts. I have never heard of this. So they're saying, most places are saying 5 days, but then I've never even heard of the 5 days. But now there's this article, oh, it could be for 10 days or more. I will even dispute the 5 days, but. So that whole thing where you know, if you're trying to conceive, you have this fertility window. I mean, if it's 10 days or more, then that's like half the month, basically. Used to be, oh, they would only survive, like the little swimmers would only survive in there for like 3 days. The other storyline that's changed is they used to say that the little swimmers had to swim their whole way. They had to swim like, you know, it was like the great race to get to the egg, and whoever got there first. And so they were looking for you had a better chance of becoming a dad if your little swimmers were strong and active and vigorous and could make the whole haul. But now they're saying, nope, it doesn't even work like that. They're saying that the women's body swooshes the sperms up there. The little swimmers just get swooshed up by like pulsing action, and they're like whisked up. Some of them are whisked into the little crypts to be saved, and others are whisked up to the egg, and that we're all in charge of it. And it doesn't really matter how much swimming power they have, because they're basically just getting whisked up there, and it's too long a distance for them to swim on their own. Duh, obviously, apparently in this timeline. So that's another story that's totally changed. Let's see. Procedures such as artificial insemination indicate that sperm may survive in a woman's body not just for 5 days, but for 10 days or more. More of a human pregnancies following single coitus indicate conception virtually throughout the cycle. All right, so yep, you basically store the little guys now. Thought that was pretty weird. All right, what's going on here? It's like I basically totally lost. My backup computer just like closed all its windows. Okay, we'll just go with this one then. See what you guys are up to. And that, I think, is the end of my story. Live control room. Aren't I on the live control room? Here we are. I always knew 5 to 7 days. They used to say that, but it was more like this, that they could live in there for 3 days, and then the egg had to come down and get near the swimmers within those 3 days. I don't actually know why they'd say 5 to 7, but there was never a saving thing, and now they're like 5, 10 days plus. So I just think it's pretty interesting that I've been talking about this weird savings thing in the chickens, and then I looked for humans, and it wasn't there last time I looked, and now it's there. So I'm pretty sure this is an ME, because I have looked for this. My best friend growing up had a neck beard, late 80s through 90s, always joked that his beard missed his face, but he moved away 15 years ago, now has a full normal beard. Huh. I'm assuming that you know he's not just shaving his neck beard one now. Can't count your chickens until they are hatched. You know, it's even double true because you've got those double yolk, double egg. Seems pretty common, the eggs now. The double yolk, like doubles. Is bathtub pregnancy going to become a thing, like the old dark humor joke? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, there's already been weird stories like women getting pregnant in weird ways. Like somebody's already mentioned, like they had like a defect in their system, and then like some swimmers got in through some weird channel. Either the beard moved up or the face went down. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, assuming he's not like shaving the neck part, because sometimes men do grow more beard in as they get older at the top, but I've never heard of men like losing lower beard. I like fact-checking Snopes. Yeah. I've never heard of a double yolk for my chickens or ducks. I don't know. It's on Reddit every 5 minutes now, so just keep your eyes open. Fully clothed bearded babies. Yeah, I don't know. I just keep an eye on it because I'm really curious what this hairy baby thing is going to. Is it going to keep trending? And I'm going to have hairier and hairier babies. I've talked about where I don't remember babies being able to like do push-ups and stuff. The swimming abilities of little babies, they used to just kind of float and put their head up, but I'm seeing videos now where they're starting to kick and swim, and they're just like 5 months old or 2 months old. Just seems like babies are so much more advanced now or something. All right, anyways, let's see, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I have 2 hours, 10 minutes. Done. I kind of burned through the Emmys pretty fast. They weren't that complicated. I think I've got everything. I suspect we're going to find this little swimmers storage and humans kind of advancing further. There really seems to be a strong trend in that. So I would definitely keep an eye on that one. But other than that, I think I'm pretty much done. Thank you for the 99 cents again. Appreciate it. Coming out of the womb looking like Chewbacca. I think we'll just see more and more variation. I mean, just like we're seeing variation within the species in, like, say, these weird caterpillar things. Each one is very different coloring, very different shapes. I'm going to guess that that's how humans are going to be. Like, each one looks more unique. There's less, how do you say that word? Homogeneity. Less, everybody looks stranger and stranger, basically. Less dependent on evolutionary trait. Yeah, and we've got this whole emphasis on epigenetics now, and how the DNA is not the be-all and end-all, and environment has such a strong influence, and a company in UK sells boxes of double yolkers. Yeah, see, it used to be like really rare a couple years ago. So I don't know. It's suspicious. Anyways, I think it's about time for me to head on out. Try to get to bed at a reasonable hour tonight. Don't know if I'll totally succeed. But thank you guys. As usual, you came up with some good stuff. I think I've got everybody credited. Sure I didn't forget anybody. I hate it when I forget somebody. Yeah, that one was me. I think most of them were me this time. It can vary quite a bit. I got yours. Got yours. Oh, I don't know if I covered, but the guy lifting his hand through the ice layer, that was from Christian Gerald, commenter of the channel. Yeah, I had this kind of feeling like I had forgotten somebody. So thank you, Christian Gerald, about the weird ice layer thing. Good find, good find. You were credited. All right, yeah, that's it. I feel like I've done it now. All right, so that's it then. Think good thoughts, everybody. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.